Hi, I'm Kirby Allison, and welcome back to another episode here on Cigar Keep, where we are exploring the magical world of Cuban cigars. Today we have a very special guest, one who is an incredible collector of vintage Cuban cigars, who is going to so generously share with us his stories and his cigars. Jean-Marie, thank you so much for joining us today. And for, of course, all of the contributions that you've made to Cigar Keep. Of course, it's individuals such as yourselves that has really made Cigar Keep, the leading community of cigar aficionados in the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kirby. It's great to be here with you.
Well, I'd say first things first. I mean, I always say that smoking is the only thing that makes work dignified, and I think we'd be amiss if we were to sit here talking about our shared love for Cuban cigars if we weren't smoking one. So I thought maybe you could share with us what it is that you have today to enjoy while we have this chat, and I would do the same for myself.
Yes, unfortunately, I'm just coming out of a cold. Uh, so, so although I'm chewing on my cigar, which is a Bolivar Junior, which is really my morning coffee breakfast cigar, together with the Partagas shorts. Uh, but please do enjoy your cigar.
You're currently at your home in London, correct?
Yes, I am currently at my home in London. I came a few days ago to spend Christmas with the family.
Yeah, excellent. Well, this is a recent acquisition, a Partagas 898, late 1990s from an unvarnished box. So we were talking
Wow.
about this a little bit yesterday. I had the incredible good fortune of acquiring a collection from a friend's father that turned out to just include some absolutely unicorns and gems, of which this was one of them. And I'm giving myself permission to smoke this today. Because it was an opened box and I think was about half or three-quarters smoked through. So it's okay if I finish it.
Well, that's great. That's a great cigar for this occasion. I wish I had the 898. I very seldom smoked an 898. I am more Lusitania D4 type of Partagas person.
Do you have any Partagas 898s in your collection, or
None whatsoever. I was not a fan, and I'm not a fan of the 898. It's a very very good cigar, but for me, as I said, it's a Lusitania D4 shorts. That's really my Partagas.
well, let's back up a little bit. And for those that are watching this video and may not know you or have seen the profile that you keep online, how did you first get into Cuban cigars? And I guess kind of walk us through our journey that has led you to now having, what is a very significant collection of vintage cigars.
Uh, yeah, with pleasure. It started at a very early age. I was around 9 years old, and the habit at that time was in the salon in the family house. You would have on the coffee table a large, either silver or Chinese porcelain, and it's filled with all types of cigarettes. So we're talking Camel, Lucky Strike, Marlboro, Kent. I mean, you name it, and it was there. Gitan, everything.
And where did you grow up?
Among all,
Place us kind of regionally.
sorry,
Where was it you grew up?
I grew up in Syria, in Aleppo, uh, and um, and among the cigarettes, of course, there were some cigars. And we had my father had a box of Romeo and Julieta, I think Corona. And one of these days, I nicked a cigar, a Romeo and Julieta Corona, and I hid it for a few months until spring was coming to see whether anybody's going to notice that there is a cigar missing, which obviously, I mean, they are not in the habit of counting cigars at that time. And it was a spring, early summer. I was in my room and I wanted to play like in the magazines, the big guy. So I had my homework on my desk open, and I asked the kitchen to get me a hot chocolate, a chocolat chaud, and put some music in the background, and took the cigar, cut the cigar. I don't know how I managed to cut the cigar correctly. I mean, I mean, you're not born with it, but there you go. I cut the head of the cigar, and I lit the cigar. I guess watching other people smoking at receptions at home. And I took literally 3 puffs of the cigar. The third puff, the room started turning slowly. And then it gained momentum and started spinning. And I was really very drowsy. So I, instead of putting the cigar in the ashtray, uh, I put the cigar in the hot chocolate cup, and I put the fountain pen in my mouth, and I don't know what the hell I did with the spoon. And I barely stood up and threw myself on my bed. Uh, I think I think I passed out for minimum 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I woke up and the room, my bedroom, was stinking cigar smoke. So I opened the doors of the balcony and I went into the bathroom. I took a towel, I wet the towel, and I stood like an idiot in the middle of the room. And I started waving the towel around so as to change the smoke smell.
Huh,
Uh, Fast forward, they did not notice.
really? That's amazing.
It was well aerated. I mean, they have no reason to come into my bedroom. So I was lucky, and that was the first cigar. So this is my first experience, or not so good
Yeah.
experience with a Cuban cigar. Of course, at that time there was no talk about Honduras and Nicaragua and whatever. It was Cuba, full stop. You know, turn the page. So that was it. And then obviously nothing happened until I became a teenager, and it was a smoking environment. And we tried everything. We tried cigarette. We tried rolling cigarettes. We tried buying cigarettes by the stick. The cigars that we could put our hand on, and they were really not so good cigars. I remember now, why did we buy King Edward cigars at that time? I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, today I wouldn't smoke King Edward. So that was the journey.
And that's an interesting
And
era because, back in that time, I mean, everyone was smoking, if
yeah,
if not cigarettes, cigars, um, and that was, I mean, that was the environment in which, you grew up. And I would
that's right.
imagine that, as you said at that time, also, I mean, there were no New World cigars; it was simply Havana cigars.
Yeah, yeah, that's correct. Uh, and then we started buying Cuban cigars. So that was, I don't know, 16, 17 years old.
And what year would
That
this have
was,
been? I mean, Cuba was at this point, under Fidel Castro.
yeah. Uh, I had a couple of friends who were Russian, white Russian, as they call them. And the father of one of them was stationed in Cuba. He used to sit us and tell us stories about Cuba, whether it was how they lived, how they planted, how the fortune of Cuba was in the soil. how they were wonderful people, and and that added to loving not only the cigars but Cuba itself as a country and as people, which is, to be honest with you, more important than smoking a cigar.
Absolutely.
And I remember he was Russian, and he used to get caviar, beluga caviar, and we used to wake up at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., go to the fridge, and the caviar was in a bowl, in a glass bowl, and we would take the bowl out and eat the caviar with a soup spoon. That's how we got into eating
The good
caviar.
old days. The good old
So
days.
it was
Yeah.
the decadent old days. That was the good old days. You are right. And we moved to Lebanon, to Beirut. And the Lebanese are very big into cigars. They have always been very big into cigars. I mean, now Mohammed Zidane, the head of Phoenicia, God bless him. I mean, he revolutionized smoking in the area. And we used to travel, and each time we travel, we would hit the tax-free shop in Beirut International Airport and buy cigars.
Yeah.
And then before going to uni, and when I went to uni, of course, I had a uni monthly package from my father. And if you spend it, you spend it. I mean, you spend it on whatever you want to spend it. You want to spend it on gambling. You want to spend it on partying. You want to spend it on cigar. You're not going to get any more.
Yeah.
That was your budget. And when I had the money, I used to get the Cohiba Lanceros. I always liked the Laguito #1. I don't forget, I was a young chap, so it doesn't suit to have a large gauge cigar. D4 and Belicosos Finos came much later. At the beginning, it was Laguito 1, Laguito 2. So it was Lanceros in cellophane.
Mm-hmm.
It was Hoyo du Gourmet. It was gold medal, Partagas. Bolivar, I beg your pardon, gold medal. And Davidoff, #1 and #2.
Yeah. And where were you at university? Was this in Lebanon?
I started the university in Lebanon, in Beirut, and then the war broke out, and my parents sent me to London. So I was in London in 78, 77, 78. I was in London, and in London, the only two shops in London for cigars were J.J. Fox and Dunhill. There was no Davidoff, no Sahakian, no nothing. And there was two holes in the wall that were selling cigars, singles, in Soho.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I mean, literally a hole in the wall. And you would buy cigars there. I didn't buy a lot from J.J. Fox. It was more at Dunhill. And by the time I finished studies, I had my small box at Dunhill with the key. It was a staircase, and you go upstairs, and the cigar and stuff were on the first floor. And now there is no first floor. And I can't remember. It was either 40 pounds per year or 80 pounds per year. I'm not sure how much it was. And you would store your cigars there. I mean, you are a student. You are living student life. You're not gonna, drag cigars in the small cubicle where you are living.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the story so far. And then I started working, and I was stationed in Cairo. And I used to buy cigars, mainly Romeo and Julieta, from the local Egyptian agent, the Habanos, Cuba Tobacco, whatever the name was at that time. And one day, the sales manager, who was a very nice guy, came to me to the office. And I said, yeah, I mean, it's a nice visit. How can I help you? He said, Cuba have decided to change agents, and we're not anymore representing. They are choosing another agent. I said, okay. He said, well, we have a large stock. You want to buy it? I said, what do you want me to do? He said, well, you smoke it. I said, well, yeah, if it is, 2, 3 boxes, I'll smoke it. But he said, no, I mean, that's a large quantity.
How many cigars do you suspect?
It was 2 crates.
So 1,000,
It was,
probably like 5,000 cigars.
yeah,
Amazing.
and that was the start of a collection. But it was collecting by chance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like what happened to you, Kirby. It's a stroke of luck. You wouldn't know that this is going to hit you. I mean, you're not looking for it, and this is what happens.
How much of that collection do you still have left?
60%.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. And this is all like mid 1980s,
Yeah,
stock.
yeah, and then I went back running the company in London, and here is when it degenerated. So in 1999, it was the first auction. It was Christie's first auction. Do you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. Uh-huh. So that's the catalog from the first auction?
No, that's a catalog. That's not the first auction. I mean, I have around 15, 20 catalogs.
Really? Wow.
94, the dinner of the century. There weren't too many people at the auction. Maybe 30 people, 40 people maximum.
Okay.
And as you know, cigar aficionados, they are a friendly bunch. They like to communicate. They like to share. They like to have a smoke. They like the good life. And I met some very nice people. Some people from Switzerland, and a big friend who was my nemesis, which is Mitchell Orchard. And I was there selecting what I wanted to buy, and he was buying like there is no tomorrow. He was buying everything. He was cleaning the place, and we became acquainted, and it developed, and we are big friends now.
Now, was Mitchell in the cigar business and the cigar trade at that time?
Yes, definitely, definitely. Mitchell was the one person who influenced cigar smoking in 2000 onward.
How would you say?
Not really. I had a list of what I wanted, and he was cleaning everything. And yeah, sometime he did overtake and took some very nice stuff that I wanted. But this is how auctions go. You can't do anything about it. This is, for example, a page, where you can see the price listed by Christie's, and then my handwriting showing the achieved price. And as I was flipping a few years ago through this particular catalog, and I found my calling card.
Ah, look at that, 474.
So this is my calling card, and it was lucky, although number 4 is not lucky in China, but it was lucky for me to get. I even still have the membership. The Christie's. I mean, you had to be a member to go into the auction. You just don't walk in and start bidding. And the auctioneer, who was a very nice guy, I don't know if you met him, Brian Ibison. He was a really nice guy, and you would go and meet Brian, and he would take you downstairs into the room where all the boxes for auction were stored, uh, and it was like Alibaba's cavern. You stand there and you look, uh, and I mean, there's so many goodies that really you don't know where to look anymore.
And this again, late 90s, early 2000s, what type of cigars were coming up for auction at Christie's in that era, which, was just the turn of what would be classified the modern era of Cuban cigars?
Yes, that's a very good question. And for us, who at that time thought we knew our cigars, and we knew Jack about cigars, well, okay, we didn't know Jack, but we didn't know everything, and until now we don't know everything. Uh, there were cigars that we never heard of, that we never ever heard of. I'll give you one example. Richard, which nickname Richard, his name is Mindron Ni. Rest in peace, the gentleman who produced the Encyclopedia of Cigars. And I had quite a big discussion with Richard about. He said that the only estupendos available are the Dunhill estupendos. And I told him, no, your information is incomplete. There is a Cifuente estupendo. He said, no, there is no Cifuente. I said, yes, there is a Cifuente estupendos. And lo and behold, I was at the Christie's auction, one of the auctions, and there was a box of Cifuentes estupendos. And it's the only box that exists that we know of.
Yeah.
If anybody has got it, I mean, you're talking big money. And I bid. And there was an American gentleman. We call him the man from Chicago. He was from Chicago. And at that time, nobody wore a hat. Now everybody, has a hat. Even me, I have a hat. But at that time, nobody wore a hat. And he wore a hat. And he started bidding. It was only him and myself bidding for this Fuente Estupendos. I stopped at that time. I stopped at 4,500 pounds. That was at that time 4,500 pounds. I mean, you buy a car. I don't know what you do. It's a lot of money, and I had to stop. I mean, where do you stop? At 10K, where do you stop? And it's getting ridiculous. And he purchased it. I lost it. I didn't get it. He got it. So to answer your question, we learned at the auction It was also a learning process. It was a fun process. It was an expensive process, but it was a learning process. There were cigars that we never ever heard of. A few months ago, I was looking at some of my cigars, and I found a c- I- it looked like a Salamones, and I looked at the band, and the band is a Partagas band. I don't know what took me. There was some other writing, and my curiosity took the best of me, and I looked at the writing, uh, and it said Partagasi Fuentes.
Hmm.
If you remember, or if you know your history, Jaime Partagas sold the factory in Havana to Cifuentes. So Cifuentes was doing his own brand and had his name on some of the Partagas cigars. That's history, man.
That's crazy.
That's that's incredible history.
And that's one of the boxes that you would have purchased at auction.
Yeah, yeah. But when I purchased, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I had no clue. You just have no clue what you. I bought it because it was a Partagas Salamones or whatever. It was a Figurado of some kind. But I didn't, took a microscope and checked what the hell it is. Uh, I didn't do that. Yeah, and it went on, and even me, Ronnie, and myself, we were sharing one American website where he had his section and I had my section, and we were good friends. We were the best of friends, and it's a shame. As you are saying, you told me those guys are disappearing, and the stories are disappearing with them. Th- you know, that's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's too bad. I mean, I think that there's an incredible an incredible value to archiving and preserving these stories for future cigar connoisseurs and future generations. And it's a work that I find very important and compelling to do. And we've had the opportunity to do that to a small extent, just through some of the videos we've done on Kirby Allison, and we want to continue that work. So if you know anyone that we need to interview and make sure that we capture these stories while we still can, please by all means, because what's interesting about cigars is in many ways kind of like tailoring. It's a living history. It's an oral history, and it hasn't been all that much documented, through books. I mean, there's a few books out there, right, but not many great ones. And absent people telling their stories like you're so generously sharing this with us right now, Jean-Marie, that, they're lost to time.
The people, the collectors that I know, there are not very many. But in general, those collectors are reserved people. I don't want to say shy people, but they are
Private,
reserved
private
people.
people.
Private, they don't like to boast.
Yeah, of course.
A collector doesn't buy it to tell the world that he bought it. A collector buys it for himself. He takes it, looks at it, put it in the cabinet, and locks it, and looks at it 2 years later. That's if you want a real collector. It is not ideal, but that's how it is. It is not a collector that is doing it for financial gain, and it is not a collector who's doing it to pose. He's doing it because this is what he likes.
Yeah.
He enjoys it. Why do you buy a Chagall painting or a Picasso painting or a Liechtenstein? I love Liechtenstein. Liechtenstein painting. It's for you to look at it, not to open a museum. You don't buy it to open a museum. Uh,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, I mean, it's part of the challenge, I think, even more so with cigars. I mean, at least with valuable artwork, a lot of it has been donated to museums and is available for public view and appreciation. Yeah, but in the world of fine and very historically significant Cuban cigars, they're all locked away in a humidor somewhere, really away from public view. And so, it's like I'd love to see the Sahakians one day.
They don't have this type of cigars.
Well, I mean, the Sakians don't have these types of cigars, but they've got, I mean, in the modern history, they've got some really significant humidors.
In the modern history, there are many people.
To come up with some type of, humidified glass display case, behind, security glass or something so that people could see some of these humidors, which are amazing. Um,
I was with Brian Everson at one of the auctions inspecting. You are supposed to go and inspect what you want to bid for. I went there, and he had a stash of Davidoff. I have a small collection of Davidoff chateaus. He had a stash of Davidoff. At that time, Davidoff Cuban was the cigar to acquire. And I asked him, "Oh, can I inspect these? I want to bid for these." He said, "It's too late." I said, "Sorry, what do you mean it's too late?" He said, "They are reserved." I said, "You serious? You are an auction house. It's reserved." He said, "Look at the roundel that what it says." I looked at the roundel, and there was a name which I will not divulge. And this particular person bought all the Davidoff, lock, stock, and barrel. This person will never ever talk about it, admit to it. I know the person, very nice. If you notice, I didn't say whether the person is male or female. uh, so I mean, that's the joy for me. That's the joy of cigars. And coming back to we don't know. Uh, I mean, even if you go to Cuba, and frankly, I don't know any collector living in Cuba, whether a ministry or government or whatever, that has got those cigars. Uh, I'm a collector. I'm a modest collector, and I also collect different from cigars, totally different line. I collect Leica glass, Leica R lenses
okay.
glass,
Yeah.
and I have two lenses that Leica in Germany do not possess. That's how I have them. They don't have them. They know that I have them, and they offered. I have April 1992 newspaper of a particular day. And this particular press printing newspaper uh, have all their previous archive except this particular one. I'm not selling. I'm not in the business.
I mean, the difference between collecting and hoarding is a fine line. And I guess it's in the perceived value of what it is. But ultimately, we're all hoarders. And as someone that loves Cuban cigars, I love Cuban cigars. I love smoking Cuban cigars. The idea of selling anything that I've acquired is just something that I can't wrap my mind around, at this moment, because I much prefer to smoke it, or at least, go to bed at night knowing that it's still in my humidor. And I would imagine,
That's the
from what you're
important
saying,
part.
this is very much the same way you approach your collecting.
Yeah. Uh,
What's interesting
going.
about the pre-revolutionary time of Cuban cigars is
Yeah,
that
I want to get. I want to
is
get there.
it was prolific. I mean, now, I mean, the moment that in Cuba you had the revolution and Fidel Castro took over, you had a real focus and consolidation of the brands to just a few factories. But it's important for us to remember that prior to that, it was an open market in which there were, cigar factories all over the place.
Yeah, you are perfectly right. In When I was in London, end 90s, I went to a book fair, and in this book fair, they had this notebook.
Cigar
Can you
paper.
read?
Cigar paper.
So this notebook is made out. This notebook is made out of tobacco leaves
Really?
that have been processed and turned into paper. So I thought, that's nice. I'm a cigar smoker, and it looks nice to put in my bookcase. So I bought it. When I bought it, I don't know what took me. I don't know if you can read the title.
I can't read that. Sorry.
Okay, the title says Cuban Cigar Timeline. So I started writing the timeline, previous from sources and post end 1999, having lived it myself. I stopped writing when they started launching Edición Limitada and Aniversario and books and this and that. At a certain moment, it was getting too much. Each 5 minutes, you would have an Edición Limitada popping up, and I was not interested, and I was sleeping on a quantity of cigars that until now, I won't be able to smoke it. It's as simple as that. And I wrote that, and I knew that we were going to have this interview, so I started reading, and some of the information that I wrote in my handwriting, and I mean, I know you cannot read, but some of the information, I mean, this notebook on its own is worth a lot of money.
Yeah. No. I'd be very interested. So, talk about that notebook. What is it that my notebook is?
One thing, for
documenting
example, one thing that I wrote about Romeo e Julieta. Romeo e Julieta, as you know, the Churchill cigar of RYJ was named after Churchill. What I forgot completely, and I don't know if anybody knows, do you know that Winston Churchill visited the RYJ factory in Havana in 1947?
I knew that Winston Churchill went to Havana, but I didn't know
He
that
he visited RYJ. He visited the Pacaria.
Amazing.
So the other thing is Upman. I'm not an Upman. I don't have enough Upman palate. I don't smoke Upman. But I wrote about Upman. Upman in 1994 celebrated 150 years. In 2024, Upman will be celebrating, I hope, 180 years. So you are going to Havana for the festival in February next month. Well, 2 months from today. And I would not be surprised if there is an announcement of some kind about 108 years.
Yeah.
Hopefully, they will launch a new Upman line, or it just might be an anniversario.
You can be certain of that. Cuba would never miss the opportunity.
Yeah. So there is so much stuff in this notebook.
So what else? Is that stretching back? How far does that stretch back?
I started writing in end 99, and I stopped in mid 2000.
Okay.
But at that time, the information was available. Some of the information was available. They had an anniversario for Christopher Columbus. Do you know that?
The 1492.
The 1492, one bonus point for you, Kirby.
Yeah, I smoked one with Max Gutman. I mean, Max Gutman in Mexico City, has some boxes, and that was one of the cigars that we smoked together. I
Yeah.
mean, incredible.
I mean, Max must have stories.
Yeah, well,
I
Max. I
mean,
mean, we could spend
he's
weeks with
as old
Max.
as.
I mean,
Sorry?
I said we could spend weeks with Max. I mean, it was,
Yeah,
it was
easy.
not enough time, the time we spent together.
Easy, easy, easy.
So, as someone that's been collecting cigars, I've got a few questions that I just have to ask. One of them is, of course, the variety of tobacco that Cuba has been using has changed over the years, right? I mean, famously in the early 1990s, they had blue mold, right, that just devastated the crop, and it was Emilio, and I forget his last name, Barsuda, that was the geneticist that helped, basically out of 1,000 different strains, find the one strain of tobacco that was able to withstand blue mold. And you know, after that period, there were no cigars being rolled with the tobacco that was being rolled prior to that. So as someone that has a collection, stretching back at what sounds like a century, how do cigars, prior to 1990 smoke differently or taste differently than the modern cigars, someone like myself has tasted? And is there a big difference, by decade or by period where, you see a, significant change in, the flavor characteristics of a Cuban cigar by virtue of the seed variety changing?
That's a perfect question. Uh, it started, let's go back in history a little bit. It started with the Spanish conquistadors when they started invading, colonizing, call it whatever you want to call it, those countries, Cuba being one of them. When the conquistadors started colonizing, they brought their culture, they brought their religion. When they brought their religion, they built churches. The churches that they built at that time was not mortar and stone, it was wood. The wood that was used by the conquistador to build the churches was Spanish cedar.
Mm-hmm.
So, Spanish cedar is the precursor of the boxes that you have in your hands. Now, the fun part is that Spanish cedar has nothing whatsoever got to do with Spain. It's called Spanish cedar, but it is not grown in Spain. It is not exported from Spain. It has nothing got to do with Spain. It is a variant of the acacia tree, or it's a variant of a different tree. So the conquistador started this Spanish cedar because it was light, because those countries, Cuba and Dominican and Honduras, because those countries were high humidity countries. You couldn't build a house or a church using any kind of wood. You need a wood that would not become mush after a few years. And the Spanish cedar was that wood. It migrated to cigar boxes.
Yeah.
It migrated to cigar boxes. And so that's for the small history. And I'm not convinced that you should use cedar wood for humidors. I mean, everybody is using cedar wood from humidor, or claim to be using cedar wood from humidors. But I mean, you have got some good contacts. Ask them, is this real Spanish wood? It is not. They don't have such anyway. Uh, I am not for cedar wood. Cedar wood preserves. I grant you that. Cedar wood is light for transportation. I grant you that. Cedar wood doesn't allow change of temperature. But when you put all this together and you get a box and you put it in your walk-in humidor or your stand-up humidor, electric humidor, basically you're doing nothing. It will take a number of years until this humidity travels into your box, but that's another story. So they started with a plant in Vuelta Abajo. They started with a plant, and this plant was called Habano tobacco. To, Habano tobacco, Habano negro tobacco,
Yeah, black tobacco.
black tobacco. That was the original uh, plant of Cuban cigars. It has developed into Criollo, into Corojo 98, into Habano 2000, into Habano 2.11, into Habano 92, into Santo Spirito. Uh, it evolved, and until today, it evolved. And the reason why it evolved is because they had to fight mold and to fight diseases.
Yeah.
And it is not the only reason. The reason why they married the different seeds together uh, was for not only for the taste of the cigar, but for the height of the plant and the number of leaves in the plant. People think that, oh yeah, blue mold and this resistant. Yeah, but forget the blue mold for a second. Those guys know what they are doing. They want higher in particular cases, and they want a higher number of leaves. So this tempo medio of Vehique, that tempo medio, what, are you kidding me? It has been available since Kingdom Come. The tempo medio, and you have been using it. But what are you talking about? There is a synergy between wine and tobacco and cigar, Cuban tobacco, that there is a kind of synergy whereby we go now into vintage, whereby vintage is a French word, which is vin d'âge. Vin is 20, d'âge is age. So it is age 20. It is also a millésime. A millésime means that at the time of production, the planting, record, picking the leaves. I forgot the name in English. The whole process has to be from a single record, from a single year
Yeah.
and from a single place.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be from a single place. To make the explanation simpler, it's like you are talking about whiskey. You have a different type of whiskey. Most of the whiskey that you are buying is blended whiskey, and then you buy single malt, and you are very happy. Oh, it's a single malt, but it's a blended single malt. If you are a whiskey connoisseur, I don't drink whiskey. You have to buy single malt, single casket. That's a very, very big difference between single malt and single casket. So if you put your hand on whiskey, single malt, single casket, now that's what I call whiskey. But
Yeah.
I am not a whiskey drinker, so what do I know? Cuban tobacco is the same story, similar story, not the same story, similar story, in the sense that originally the Criollo from Vuelta Abajo. I have a box from 1960.
And so when you say you have a box from 1960 Criollo, that would have been, I mean, would they have been using multiple strains of tobacco in Cuba in a given year, or is it all the same?
No, no, no. That's the original McCoy. That's the original McCoy. There was no sophistication at that time. So this is the box.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Can you see the roundel?
I can see it. Uh-huh.
That's Christie's. Okay. This is the cover of the box. This is a TB Carlin box. I am not sure if it is cedarwood, but I'll show you in 1960 how they. Oh my God! I opened the box. I can still smell it. It's unbelievable, man.
I wish I was there with you.
I'm sorry, but I'm surprised at myself. You open the box, and this is what you get.
Okay.
Okay, so the covers were like that, not the covers that we have now, which is the cheapy cover. So you open it, and you open it, and you open it, and you open it, and then you have the glycine. This is the original glycine, if you remember.
And that's the tissue. That's the wax paper. Or, yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Do you have
So
a
I
good
can see it.
picture?
I mean, it's a banded. So I mean, you've got the yellow band. It's a banded cab of 50. Is it 50? Everything's better as a cab of 50.
This cost a few pennies, but I will smoke it because this is the. I mean, you cannot be more original than original. You can't. TB Carlin. I'll tell you about the brand.
And is so that I mean that would in 1960s. I mean, it's not pre-revolutionary, but I guess they were still making it at that time before they stopped.
TB Carlin at that time in the 60s. Uh, what happened at that time is you would go to Cuba and you would tell them, I want cigars and I want to call them Kirby / Jean-Marie. And they tell you, yeah, there's no problem. What type of cigar? Oh, I want a Robusto or whatever, Laguito, whatever. And they produce it for you. They design it, or you give them the design. And this is what you get. That's what you get.
Yeah.
That's what you get.
I mean, what an era.
It started with this guy. Now, for the small history, if you go to Mayfair, between Mitchell Orchon Cigar Shop and Fox, on the other side of the street, there is a small street, and the shop was there.
Okay. On St.
And now
James's or on
now
one of
it
the
is an
side streets?
embassy.
Which embassy is it now?
I'll send you the picture. I'll send you the picture. I'll send you the picture. I can't remember which embassy. I have the picture. It was very emotional to go and stand there where you think that all the boxes were there. Now, for the history, the TB Carling is available in 3 different vitolas. You have the K, you have the R, and you have the J. I have the 3 of them, plus an open box. If you can put your hand on a pure Vuelta Abaco, this is as pure as it comes. Maybe there is purer. I've never seen it.
What do you mean pure? So tell me what you mean by that.
Sorry?
What do you mean by that's as pure as it comes? Tell me what you mean.
It's the original tobacco. It's the original negro, tobacco negro. It's the original Vuelta Abajo Tobacco Negro.
Yeah.
It was not yet hit by mold and stuff. I mean, you have 4 or 5. I mean, if you can summarize the Cuban history, The first one obviously was the revolution. The second one was the mold. The third one was the debacle of Dunhill and Davidoff. The fourth one was mold, and the fifth one in 2008 when Russia lost all its surrounding countries, and the reason is Cuba took a very big hit because they used to import magnesium.
Yeah, as fertilizer.
From Russia. And with the Yeltsin story, and they couldn't import anymore. So the plant suffered. The plant cannot live without being fed. But that's for another video, the story. So people used to go there, Upman, TB Carl, they used to go there and produce under their name. Davidoff and Dunhill went there. And now, when you talk about Dunhill or about Davidoff, let's talk about Dunhill. And they tell you, do you have a Don Alfredo? Do you have a Don Candido? I have a Suprema Dunhill. Sorry, you don't have a Dunhill. What you have is a Dunhill stamp on the box that says Dunhill, and it says what is the factory. So it could be whatever. It could be RYJ, it could be Partagás, it could be Hoyo, it could be José Jenner, it could be anything. It is not Dunhill.
Yeah.
The Dunhill brand, when it was created, had their own tobacco profile. The other ones are not Dunhill. They are using Dunhill. Why? Because Dunhill and Davidoff at that time had a contract with Cuba that they are the sole distributors in Europe, of course, UK. They are the sole distributors. And what's his name? Avenido. He contacted Zino Davidoff and told him, we are sleeping on 10 million cigars. Could you distribute it? He said, yes, I can distribute it, but I want to put my name on it.
Okay.
Yes, you can put your name. No, you cannot put your name. They went ahead and put their name. The contract with Dunhill and Davidoff, people have to understand very clearly this particular point. The contract between Cuba and Davidoff and Dunhill, they gave up the distribution rights. So who was making the money? Dunhill and Davidoff.
Yeah.
And Cuba was screwed.
But that was just for those brands. Because at that time, you still had other brands.
That was for those brands. And if you look at dates, Dunhill and Davidoff stopped in 1992. Correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When did the AMS start?
Good
in
question.
93.
93. Okay.
Yeah. AMS started. Why are you going to tell me it's a coincidence? It is not a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. And then 94, another story. Yeah, I appreciate it might be a little bit controversial, but that's the history. I cannot change it. Nobody can change it. This is what it is.
Absolutely. But Hunters and Frankel had the distributorship for other brands.
Hunter and Franco did not have all the brands.
Well, they didn't have all the brands, but they had distributed.
Well, first of all, they were not Hunter and Franco. They were two separate companies.
Well, I should be more familiar with the history. But yeah, I mean, there were different brands kind of throughout history. I mean, there was Hunters and there was Francal, and then they merged, and it was Hunters and Francal. And I don't remember the date that that happened, but but they had exclusive distribution rights for particular brands, right?
Yes.
Um, that coexisted alongside Dunhill and Davidoff's distribution exclusivity for their own
Yeah.
brand.
They grew, I mean, I'm sorry to say, they grew from the demise of Dunhill and Davidoff. That's how they grew.
And what was it that catalyzed, I mean, there's a lot of
What was?
stories. There's a lot of different stories about why Dunhill and Davidoff ultimately left Cuba. Everyone has their own version.
But there isn't everyone. There is only one version, and nobody wants to talk about it. And everybody wants to put their head in the sand and pretend that it doesn't exist. The contract was that Davidoff would be the distributor. What Cuba was doing, they named the brands with famous names, whether it was Roma y Julieta, whether it was Monte Cristo, whether it was, well, okay, Partagas existed in Cuba, so they used names, historical names. Uh, Davidoff came and said, that's a good idea. Let's also do the same thing, but we cannot use names of illustrious writers or we will use the names. So he decided to call some brands Chateau Lafitte, Chateau Mouton Rothschild,
Yeah.
Chateau Aubryon, Chateau Margaux, Chateau Yquem. He did not have the right to use those brand names.
Yeah. Because they were trademarked.
The French were pissed off. Can I say pissed off? The French were not happy.
Yeah.
And uh, first letter, second letter by the lawyers, third letter by the lawyers. Fast forward, France and UK, 4 companies in France, 3 companies from UK. I will keep the names for myself. Sued Davidoff and Cuba. They sued both of them that you do not have the right to use chateau names. Those are branded wine names. You do not have the right. Do you have a contract? No. Then shut up and pay the money.
Yeah.
The litigation was, look at the fine points, look at the history. The litigation was that Cuba will never ever use the Davidoff name again and will destroy all what they have as stock. Has nothing got to do with Zino Davidoff. Has nothing got to do. He had his own lawsuit. This was the lawsuit against Cuba. The lawsuit against Zino Davidoff, he does not have the right, he relinquishes the right to deal in cigars, to produce cigars, to do anything that has to do with cigars. Otherwise, he's going to put his shirt as a collateral and he's going to be in big trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And he agreed, and Cuba agreed. And then they come and tell you the quality of the Davidoff. Whom are you kidding? We were smoking the bloody thing. The quality was still the same quality. Whom you want to kid? You want to kid me, or you want to kid people of my age? There is nothing wrong with the quality. He did not decide to. First of all, he doesn't have the authority to burn. That's number one. He doesn't have the authority to burn. And now you speak to anybody, and I don't want to name names, and say, yes, the quality, and he decided to burn. What a load of bull. What a load of bull. Why don't you come clean and admit? The problem, if you read interviews by Schenken, by Savona, with the Cuban, you have to read between the lines. You have to read between the lines what they don't want to say. Don't forget, they cannot speak like I am speaking to you. They cannot do that. I mean, they cannot sue me. I'm too old for that. I'll be pushing daisies by the time they finish the litigation. So this is the true story. Dunhill, because they are English, and English are masters of diplomacy and contracts. I mean, they are masters of diplomacy and contracts. They got out of it scot-free. They said, okay, tear the contract. We don't want to have anything to do with it. They are clever people. What can I tell you? The other guy is a wheeler dealer. The English, with their legal system, you cannot beat that. It's as simple as that. You cannot beat the English at their system.
Yeah.
So that's to answer your question. Now it's a bit controversial, so I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah. But that's why, I mean, that's why you don't see Dunhill cigars at all anymore, right?
No.
And then Davidoff made the decision to then, you know, basically establish production in the Dominican Republic.
That's good. Sorry to interrupt you, Kirby. That's what I was gonna say. Zino Davidoff, at that time, look at the dates. He sold the name to what's his name, the German Davidoff guy.
The Kelleners?
No, his German name.
Was it his partner?
I forgot. I have it written here somewhere. There's too much information, to be honest with you, and he had to sell it to him because he didn't have the right. He didn't have the Zino Davidoff did not have the right anymore. It was not his company anymore. It was the what's his name?
The
I
German
forgot
guy.
his name.
Yeah.
I'll send you his name. And that this is what happened. So anyway, this is the story of how Cuba took back ownership of their production. That's how they took ownership of their production.
Ernst Schneider. Was it Ernst Schneider? Dr. Schneider. Dr. Schneider.
Schneider.
Yeah.
Schneider. There you go. If you open your books and look at the dates, when did Schneider buy? When did Schneider was the owner? And then obviously you had Altadis, but I mean, this will take all day if we're gonna start talking about that. Let's talk about the Cuban. Do you have any other question, or shall we talk Cuban cigars?
No, let's go back to Cuban cigars. I mean, so let's go back to collecting, right? I mean, so you're talking about the black tobacco being the original Cuban tobacco. And that's why a cigar from that era smokes completely unlike any modern cigar. I mean, it's not just the age that has it smoked differently. It's even more so by virtue of the fact that it was a completely different variety of tobacco than what's grown now.
Yeah. So this is a box of gold medal, Bolivar gold medal. Okay. This is the genuine McCoy. This is 1980.
Wow.
That's 1980. That's the original.
Is that an open box? Can we look at one? Because, you know, I mean, the Bolivar Gold Medal is a beautiful cigar. It's one of my favorites. And I don't have any from 1980s, but I've collected over the years, you know, from Bond Roberts.
So this is 1980.
Amazing. Wow, look at that.
And this is 2024.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, they couldn't be more different.
Now, if you look, there is no date. It just says Claro.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah. Now, let's go back Let's go back to TB Carling. No date. It says Claro.
So how would you date a box from that era? I mean, do they have the box codes where it's slightly cryptic?
The issue, I'll tell you what's the issue. The issue is that the box is one thing. What's inside the box is a different story. You can establish if the box is correct, stated for the date, but it is very difficult to establish whether the cigars that are in the box, unless it's really crap cigars, are from the date or not. And the only way, I mean, for the Bolivar gold medal, it's simple because of the foil. The foil that was used in 1980, I mean, you cannot see it. It has a very particular design. And if you don't have this particular box, you wouldn't know how to imitate it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can tell. For the other boxes, you can tell the box, the cigar itself. That's why I always advise, if you want to buy vintage cigars over 20 years, uh, make sure to find out the provenance.
Mm-hmm.
It is not enough that you're a nice guy and I'm selling you a cigar box. This cigar box could cost $25, and I'm selling it to you at $2,500. The box is correct, but the cigar insides are not.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can tell, sometimes you cannot tell. That's why I don't. I mean, I have an Instagram. Maybe you could put my Instagram.
What is your Instagram?
It's
Well, send it to me later.
Habanos underscore vintage underscore cigars. Uh, I don't put very rare cigars, because they will imitate them.
Yeah.
Now, how can you tell? You can tell of two things. This is a Monte Cristo Figurado Pyramides.
Yeah.
Look at the box, at the back of the box.
Okay.
The leaf is missing because at that time they did not introduce the leaf. So yes, you can tell. You can tell by reading here. I mean, never mind the stamp. Of course, the stamp will tell you the date, but never mind the stamp. Here, you will be able to find out the range of when the box was produced. I'll show you the inside.
Just seeing if that's on your Instagram. I don't think that one is. Yeah, that was beautiful. I mean, can you speak through the different characteristics that you look at in order to, that contribute to authenticity and value? So, we were speaking about the collection that I acquired recently, and you were saying if it's an unopened box where the seal's not broken, it's more valuable than a box that has the seal broken and that's been opened, because it's one of the ways that you can assert authenticity, correct?
That's right. I will show you something that will blow your mind.
Yeah, so those are Alfred Dunhill Havana cigars. And what is the stamp directly above the logo?
This is an open box. I'll open it for you.
Wow, in tubo. Wow. And a cigar being in a tube or in tubo, I mean that would elevate the value of a cigar above what, even a cabinet,
No,
because they age
no.
differently?
I'll show you another one. This is Havana Club.
Okay. Yeah. Alfred, I see it. Hold it up a little bit. A little bit more up. Yeah. Okay. So that has the tobacco leaf. Up a little bit. Up. Yeah. Okay.
This is a slid.
Lid. Uh-huh.
Look at that. Curvy look.
Wow. In coffins.
In coffin.
It's a good thing we're not there. I'd be robbing you and smoking.
I'm not going to open it.
Yeah, well, it's difficult to open the coffins.
What I am about to show you now is a little jewel, because it's the only box that we know of that exists in the hand of a collector. And this box, this box is a dream. The packaging is different.
Dunhill, okay. Okay, Dunhill, London, Tubos.
Estupendos.
Oh, Estupendos. Okay, I didn't see that.
Tubos. The other one was Estupendos.
The one in the coffins.
No, this one was Estupendos.
Okay, can't see it.
Can you see the Estupendos?
Not really. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, there you go. I got it right there. 10 Espendidos.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's the Estupendos. That's the Havana Club. And this is the Tubos.
Okay.
Now watch this.
So that's unopened. Intact seal. Yeah, amazing.
Look at the back.
Completely clean. No leaf. But there's also no, this is before they were stamping the bottom of the boxes. That's amazing. What else do you have to show and tell?
This is why myself and other collectors, we get a little bit annoyed. People say, oh, I've got this, I've got that. Don't tell me you've got this, you've got that. Show it to me.
Yeah. Well,
Show it to me physically. Don't tell me you got it. I don't care if you got it. Show it to me, and don't. And if you want to buy, if you have the money to buy it, what the saying is,
put your money where your mouth is.
Your money where your mouth is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you've got to show it. I mean, absolutely.
I'll show you more stuff.
Please. What is that? It's a letter.
That's an envelope.
Mm-hmm.
Christie's. Can you see Christie's?
Yeah, I can see it. Uh-huh.
Okay.
So it's an auction receipt.
That's the invoice.
Yeah.
That's the invoice.
Yeah.
So I have the invoice, I have the catalog, and I have the box. What additional provenance would you require?
Yeah. Well, do you know where the box came from? I mean, in the catalog, does it list whose collection it's from?
Yeah. No, it doesn't say from in the catalog, but you are buying from Christie's. So if push comes to shove, you can ask Christie's to open their archive. But it is in the catalog of Christie's, and there is the invoice. If you don't believe that,
Well, I mean, and And even more importantly, it's unopened because, I mean, there's, of course, always, been rumored scandal of, the cigars inside boxes even going for significant sums at auction, not being authentic. So are you still actively acquiring, or would you say that, you?
Very seldom. Very seldom.
What about new stock? I mean, what cigars do you enjoy smoking daily? I mean, are you smoking?
I smoke daily. I smoke daily these little things, which is Bolivar Junior and Partagas shorts. That's a morning with a coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's my and then in the day it is a D4 Partagas and Bellicosos Finos.
Great cigars.
And if it is a long evening, it will be a Lusitania
Yeah.
or a Hoyo.
And are you smoking aged, current production, right? Where
Yeah,
you're
no,
smoking
no.
boxes that,
The Bolivar Junior and the shorts are new production.
but new production. But
Uh,
whenever you're smoking, I mean, are you smoking aged stock, right? So cigars that you
yeah,
purchased 10 years ago,
yeah.
that have sat and rested.
No, the D4 that I'm smoking. When I see you, I'll gift you one. Uh, it says usually on a normal D4, it says D.4, correct?
Mm-hmm.
On the old ones, it says D.4 dot.
And when you say old, I mean, what year, what time period are we speaking?
90.
Okay.
And the Bolivar, you can tell because the band has changed. So you can tell whether this is a new cigar or this is an old cigar.
But your daily D4s that you're smoking, are you smoking the ones from 1990s from your collection? Or are you smoking,
Yeah,
cigars you bought last week at Davidoff of London?
I did buy some new D4s and I was disappointed. It is not the same. It cannot be the same. It's impossible. Yeah. Especially if you are a smoker of this particular cigar. So you know the flavor profile of the cigar. So if you take a newer cigar, you can immediately tell that this is not the same cigar. I don't care about the master blender, fantastic guy or fantastic lady. It is not the same profile. It's as simple as that. And it cannot be the same profile. It's impossible.
With the tobacco strains
It's
of
like,
the tobacco
like
varieties have
wine.
changed.
It's like wine, you buy a Latour, a Chateau Latour recent, and you have a Chateau Latour 1950, 1960, 1940, 19 whatever, which is not the same. Okay, some Chateau Latour are perfect for salads, vinegar for salads, but that's another story.
Yeah. Huh. Ugh. Well, fascinating journey. I mean, anything else that you would, stories that are kind of on the top of your mind you'd like to share, or shall we,
Uh,
conclude and and do this another time and to explore more? Because I mean,
yeah. Maybe we'll do another one and we concentrate not on a general subject like today. Maybe we concentrate on a particular how it has evolved. I mean, I did not dwell a lot on what happened with the mold and what happened with the Russian saga, and there is another problem with Barnes that again nobody wants to mention because they don't want to upset certain country. I mean, it's a never-ending subject. Uh, Sometimes it is a bit controversial, but there you go.
well,
Listen, thank you very much, Kirby. That was fun.
yeah, Jean-Marie. I mean, thank you for sharing this incredible history with us, and it's a great example
I hope
how
you
much we
enjoyed
have to
it.
learn from those that are members of Cigar Keep. And thank you for, you're a regular on our weekly smokes on Thursdays, and always a very active and impassioned contributor to whatever the topic of conversation is of that day.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Kirby.
Well, thank you for this, and I've enjoyed it so much. And I look forward to hopefully soon sharing a cigar in person, but until then, I will certainly, relish these moments that we've had virtually to enjoy each other's company and enjoy a passion that we share in common and enjoy so much, which are the beautiful cigars from Cuba that are truly just as much today gifts of the Cuban people to the people of the world, really as they've always been.
Excellent. Thank you, Kirby.
Yeah, thank you.